Hello everybody. Welcome to my video on my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about the emotional center. So this little video is part of the little mini series I've created on all of the 9 centers. If you haven't watched them already, then I encourage you to do so, because through each of the different videos, I talk about what it means to have a defined and undefined center, what an open center looks like. So before I dive in, let me quickly just share my screen and show you. So this is a human design body graph. You can get your human design body graph / chart from effiemoss.com. So just go there, grab a free chart and just see what, how it comes back for you. There'll be text that goes around the body graph. And hopefully by the time you see this, most of that text will be linked to little videos just to give you an understanding so you can decipher what it is that you're seeing. Today, we're going to be talking about this center here. So I don't know, I'm hoping you can see this on my screen. This is the emotional center, okay? Now, if your emotional center is colored in, like the head center up here, it doesn't matter, by the way, what color it is, that's just the branding of the chart. But if it's fully colored in with a color, then it's a defined center. And that means you've got consistent access to the energy that center is going to provide you through your body. If the center is white with colored numbers, then that's an undefined center. And that means that you're here to take on and sample the energy for this particular center from the environment and the people around you. And then if you have a white center but with no colored numbers, then it means it's completely open. And that just also means that you'll be able to take on the energies of those around you and you'll amplify it. But it does also mean that there'll be a heightened degree of sensitivity around that energy center. Okay, so let me go back so that I can see all. So let's just get through the interesting stuff first. So for those of you who like statistics, 53% of the population have the emotional center defined, which means that 47% of the population have it undefined. So if we break that down in terms of what we mean, so when you have the emotional center, its job is to help us improve our emotional intelligence. It's to help us become more emotionally aware, which is why the emotional center is also an awareness center within human design. It's here to help us observe. It's here to help us feel. And when we feel, we can then naturally manifest and go on to create things in our lives. So it's not happening up here in our heads. No. It's happening here in our emotional center. All right. So the emotional center is a pretty powerful center, and it's one of the 4 motors within human design, helping us to kind of push energy along into our bodies. All right. So when you have a defined emotional center, then you are somebody who can consistently access your emotions. You might, for example, have an emotional authority. You're able to experience your emotional wave. So you may go like up and down on your emotions. And then if you have an undefined or an open emotional center, then you are very likely empathetic. You can take on other people's emotions, often not understanding that they're not your own, and that it's because you're in the vicinity, the auric vicinity of somebody or an environment that's making you feel a certain way, right? And because you have an open or an undefined center, you amplify it, you 10x it, as I like to say. So sometimes you'll feel even worse than the actual environment's trying to show you, or the people are trying to show you. And I always use the example of my husband and traffic, right? Always. I have an open, very open emotional center. I'm very sensitive in that particular area. It's the place where I can experience the most conditioning. And I can honestly say through my life story, it's the place where I've had to do the most work in terms of emotional maturity, emotional understanding, not taking everything to heart, and discerning like what is my emotion versus somebody else. So if my husband's in a traffic jam, so Clive's a really impatient driver, if he's in a traffic jam, I used to get so cross. I used to get so cross because he was getting cross, except for I'd be louder. I'd be even more cross than he was being. And not because it was some kind of competition, just because I'm sitting there bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. And when I started to really dive into this and understand that was his stuff, that was his stuff as somebody with a defined emotional center who's leaning into some elements of the least optimal expression of that center, right? And expressing it as impatience, expressing it as frustration, which is part of his manifesting generator energy type as well, right? So he's not aligned. Something there is triggering him. right? I don't need to take that on. I'm actually can be Switzerland. I can be quite neutral, right? I'm here to sample other people's emotional energy, to try them on, to sift and sort, to see and understand the variance of those emotions. And what happens is that when you're able to kind of understand the variance of those emotions, that then powers other things within your life, right? Within your life story. So if you're able to read a room, that makes you incredibly emotionally aware, right? Gives you an awareness around people, the environment, the atmosphere, so that you can approach that in the right way. Somebody said to me once that they thought it was a bit of a burden having an undefined emotional center because they were a bit tired of being able to feel other people's energies. And we ended up having a massive discussion as to where that feeling was coming from and what was triggering it. Because actually being able to sample different energies around you is such a gift, depending, of course, how you then turn that gift into something that's going to be powerful, i.e., read the room. Understand how people are feeling so that you can land a message that you might want to land. When you're delivering a service or product in your business, being able to kind of sense the mood and understand kind of what the landscape is, right? So that you can actually have the most effect. And if you've got a defined center, right, we've been conditioned to believe that having bad feelings is bad. Having good feelings is what we must try and experience all the time. This is the human experience, right? There is nothing about this human experience that means that we must feel good and joyful all the time. Yes, of course, you can align with your decision-making authority, your strategy. You can live more into your energy type to bring more joy into your life. But life is all about the ups and downs. It's all about that emotional wave, right? And so if you have a defined center, then you have the gift of being able to experience that emotional wave, to experience that contrast. You can't have day without night, right? You can't experience stars without a dark sky, right? There's always beauty in contrast. And I think the emotional center is one of the most beautiful centers because it enables us to feel that contrast, that up and down of that wave. What we want to do, though, is not get stuck in the wave. You don't want to get stuck at two highs or two lows in melancholy, for example. You want to be able to kind of feel it and allow it to pass through you. Because what we tend to do is we suppress it. Oh, I'm starting to feel, unhappy. I'm starting to feel sad about something, for example, and then we go, oh no, I need to get rid of it. I need to distract myself. So I need to go over here and do something. And you may have heard me say this in my videos before. You put a lid on it, it's like a pressure cooker, right? And it bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. And for some people, it might be immediate. For some people, it might take years. But eventually that pressure cooker lid will just explode, right? And it will pop. And all the steam, everything that you were suppressing will come fizzling out, right? And that was going to knock the wind out of your sails. So what we try to do now is try to allow that emotion to pass through our bodies, is to allow to kind of just feel it, take the beauty from it if you can, and I'm not happy all the time. I have up and down cycles, even with a very open emotional center, but I recognize it for what it is. I give myself the space to rest. I walk outside, I go into environments I know that I enjoy. I take time to, we'll use the word self-love. I'll read, I'll write, I'll do something, not to distract me, but to enable me to kind of feel the essence of what I'm feeling so it can then move on and I can then carry on through, right? I think as well with the emotional center, this is the center for things like creativity, for passion. It's about having the emotional depth to be able to curate a life that's, filled with creativity, with passion. It's the center that's also going to fuel your identity center for love. And, it's going to help you create and connect to your inspired thoughts and ideas that are coming in through your head center. It's, sometimes it's going to be the thing that's going to connect through to your inner being so that you can then help drive your manifestations forward into this life. So the way that we feel is particularly important. And when I talk about creativity, it doesn't mean that everybody has to be an artist. I mean, I'm sure we can all be artists to a degree, but some people are just going to be much more like in tune with that than others. You know, creativity is an expression. It's an expression of your true self. And often that might come out, yes, in art. It could come out in making things. It could come out in teaching, talking to people. It could come out through writing, reading. You know, creativity is at the essence of who we are. It just wants to be expressed. It's how life expresses itself through us, right? And all of this lives in our beautiful emotional center. The least optimal expression of the emotional center is that we can sometimes feel this fear. So fear, right? Fear of confronting people, fear of saying the truth of things that we see, fear of speaking up, right? Fear of expressing our emotions just in case someone tells us that we're silly, right? Seeking approval from others that actually the way that we're feeling or what we're thinking is okay, right? Fear of disappointment, rejection. And this is why I think that this center is particularly probably one of the most important centers in terms of awareness. Because although that list I just said, probably we've all felt at some point in our lives, right? And we can either let, you know, emotions are meant to rule our lives, right? They're here to actually inform our lives. They're here to inform our life story. They're here to help us along our life's journey. It's here to help us align with our decision-making authority, to align with our strategy, to be able to live in the true essence of who we are, right? You know, and I think sometimes if we bury ourselves in fear and we get trapped in this lower end of this emotional wave, you know, we deny ourselves the gifts that we get when we push through, when we allow it to move its way through us, so that we can reach those moments of joy. We can reach those moments of pure creativity and passion and excitement. And wouldn't it be nice to live like that, right, all the time? But then just think about that. If you live like that all the time, you would get bored, right? Another expression of the emotional center. You'd start to lean into maybe your not self themes of feeling frustrated or bitter if you're a projector, for example, right? So you need to be able to experience the highs so you can see the value in the lows. And I'm using those expressions just because it's easier for me to communicate it in that way. But, you know, we need contrast. And I think there is nothing more beautiful than the emotional center to be able to show us and help us do that. So if you have an undefined center, let me know. If you have a defined emotional center, let me know. You'll often find that those of you who have a defined center may very likely have an emotional authority. And I've spoken about this in my authority video, so feel free to jump over there and to learn a little bit more about it. But if you do have an emotional authority, it literally means that when you're making a decision, you need to have a consistent yes or a consistent no as the answer to the decision you are trying to make, and it needs to remain as a constant no or a constant yes, no matter where you are on your emotional cycle, right? And it's really funny because those of us who have an undefined or open emotional center, you know, we are empathetic beings. We can be very sensitive. I know I'm very sensitive, and a lot of that lives in my emotional center. And it's really funny because I have a non-emotional authority. If you were to tell anybody around me that Effie has a non-emotional authority, they'll be like, you're joking. Like, nobody wears their heart on their sleeves in my family more than I do. Like, literally, there is nobody more sensitive, nobody who would cry more at a film, nobody who can kind of feel things when horrible stuff happens, right? And that's deemed as being emotional, but actually I'm just expressing the emotion of that moment, of how it's making me feel. And that is my response. And many, many years ago, you know, I used to get told off for like crying at things, right? Whereas now I celebrate having tears in my eyes because I'm expressing my emotion, right? I'm letting it show itself. I'm letting it move through my body. There's nothing shameful in having tears. There's nothing shameful in kind of expressing your emotion in that way, right? But then the extreme side of that emotion is anger. If I get angry or I have a moment and I'm getting really cross about something, I'm expressing the least optimal expression of that center, and I need to create space between me and that anger. When I say create space, by the way, what I mean is if you can catch yourself, and this is a hard thing to do and it takes practice, and I'm still practicing it, right? Is that if you can catch yourself in those beginning seconds as you feel something like anger rising or frustration rising, it's just to take a deep breath and center yourself, and then almost physically take a step back, almost as if you're like saying, well, anger, frustration, you know, I don't know, those come, just you stay there just for a minute. I'm just going to take a step back physically, and I'm just going to look in at you. I'm going to observe you, right? You're now in my awareness, right? And if you can do that, what happens is you start to almost slow things down. And in that moment when things start to slow down, you then start to kind of go, am I really feeling this? What's triggered it? Right? What am I not owning? What's this telling me? Right? Does this actually belong to me? Sometimes it does belong to you, and actually it's a trigger from something that maybe has happened. But it's being able to look it in the eye. And there's a lot of bravery and courage in that when you're able to look something in the eye and go, I hear you, I see you, I thank you for the gift that you are giving me, but I don't need to own you. And I think that is so, so important. And like I said, it's practice. I'm still practicing. There are moments when it escapes me. We're human. This is the experience that we are living. This is the story that we have created for ourselves, and that we are expressing. But the emotional center isn't something to be feared. Your emotions are beautiful, and they should be embraced and experienced fully to give you the wisdom that that center wants to help you learn, so that you can up level and continue to grow in your life and expand. So let me know down below in the comments below whether you have a defined emotional center or an undefined. Let me know your experiences of your emotional center, where you are on that with that emotional wave. Do you allow yourself the time to feel them, to kind of, let it pass through your body? Do you suppress them? Just let me know. And if you want to reach out to me privately, please do. I'm always very happy to talk to everyone in the community, but if you want to have a chat as well, just reach out to me as well. So I'll see you in the next video where we'll be talking about spleen, which is one of our oldest energy centers. So I look forward to seeing you over in that video. Take care, everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.